cafeteria.
I bathe in the sun.
What did I tell you?
I use it all the time.
And when I was a teacher, I thought she was.
My wife thinks that you gotta do it before you eat.
Wow. We have it right in our kitchen, right? Same thing. It's like,
I've got a pretty good immune system.
I do too.
I don't get sick.
After teaching for 35 years, I don't get much, but when I do, I get sick.
Robin was supposed to do opening remarks.
What?
Robin was supposed to do opening remarks.
Never really sick. I get almost, just enough to annoy
So-
me. Make
Right.
nervous.
Right.
Need a motion to excuse him.
Pledge of
Is
Allegiance,
anybody going
opening
to pick
remarks.
up opening remarks in this place?
I'll do something.
Okay. I guess that's,
I came over and tried, and it seemed to work. I'm gonna try it. You know, if it happens like last time. Okay, so I did try it, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you telling me.
See you on that.
I promise I won't talk to you. I didn't talk to you last year, so I won't talk. Remember that whole? Did you get to meet my wife?
Jackson,
On the way out or something?
I'm gonna have to call him.
Take the glasses off.
That was the beginning and the end.
Is he still alive? I want to be. I don't know. Who was it?
Old age?
No.
You don't want to be.
No.
She got a tumor,
I
I
am.
think.
Are you?
All of a sudden, within a couple weeks, she went from being old dog, I think seizures and crying and, oh, it was awful here. We were literally like up with her all night, just trying to like hold
Is
her.
it against the Constitution? Why is that Las Vegas?
The doctor said, they said at the table, oh my God, have you ever had to put a dog down?
My dog got ran over before council.
No, that's
That's
hard.
not-
That's hard.
I almost came to
It
council.
is against the Constitution.
Yelled at me, why was I late?
Oh,
When? Like 30 minutes ago.
So were you
The only thing I
kids?
think they could get.
No,
Yeah, really fun. So they talked
I mean, they were,
one gal didn't speak any English at all. And the other one actually did pretty good, but she just didn't know what she was saying.
I was crying. Dog got
Some
hit.
kind of convention there.
Awful. That's awful.
Network marketing of some kind.
I mean,
There was 5,000.
as a kid, we had dogs. I guess as a kid, I didn't pay, you know, I wasn't the one feeding them, taking them out, doing, you get attached to them, doing that stuff. So now it's like,
Based on
Rachel and Jackie,
I didn't want to bubble up.
I know. That's how, and Rachel and Jackie just took a 4-day vacation. Rachel finished school. We're at risk. Started grad school. So,
Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Kent City Council meeting of December the 18th. Will clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Amrhein,
Here.
Mr. DeLeone,
Here.
Mr. Ferrara,
Here.
Mr. Kuhar,
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Here.
Ms. Shaffer, here, Mr. Sidoti,
Here.
Mr. Turner,
Move to excuse.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Ms. Wallach.
Here.
All right, we have opening remarks. Mr. Turner was supposed to make them. I'll do them on his behalf. Just a reminder of the season it is, the season of giving. There's a lot of people in need of food to make their holidays a nice event for them. If you can do it, please make a visit to the Kent Social Services. And there's other ways you can give what you think you can do. And I know that's a big recipe for baking that cookie, but it needs to be done. These people need it. So would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll need a minute, motion for the minutes of November the 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. DeLeone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Audience remarks. Is anybody sign
Oh,
in?
yes. Christopher Myers.
I have to read this first. While the law does not require council to provide time for the public comment, we have historically invited the public to make comments, and we appreciate their input. This is the time for the residents and others that can make comments on matters that concern them. However, we do not engage debate, or as president of council, I have reserved the right to end any public comment that is disruptive, embarrassing, harassing, or otherwise objectionable. We ask that you come to the podium and speak your name and your address, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Christopher Myers. Is this thing on?
No.
Nope. Push the button in the back of it.
Once again, my name is Christopher Myers. I live at 220 East Elm Street, Kent, Ohio, 44240. I may say something that's embarrassing, but embarrassment is in the ear of the behearer. I can't help it if somebody feels embarrassed when I say something that's true. And I never say anything here that's not true. Now, somebody here has been going around town telling people that I hate the university. So how much do I hate the university? Well, I'm going to give the mayor something that he can pass around, so whoever is thinking I hate the university can have second thoughts.
Everything comes to the court.
You can
Give
submit
to
it
the
here,
clerk.
Mr. Myers. Thank you.
Okay, I want to talk about this thing about Tara Grimm accusing people of stalking. Of course, she accused me of stalking some time ago, and she's accused the mayor of stalking. And well, I don't think it's in the mayor's character to stalk anybody. Who knows? Mike DeLeone doesn't think that the mayor stalked the clerk. He told me that outside here one time. And he said he doesn't think I stalked the clerk. But you know, an accusation of stalking somebody, you know, unless it's really true and really investigated, can come back to haunt. This can come back to haunt me, and it can come back to haunt the mayor. It really needs investigated, because this person, Tara Grimm, has accused 2 people of stalking. Okay. Let me just go back to something else. In the police report against me, not only was I accused of stalking, but in here is a comment by I don't think that these comments were put in knowingly by the people that made them, but I'm going to read what they are. This is one by Heidi Shaffer. I too have felt targeted and harassed by Mr. Myers and have stopped responding to him. He has not yet appeared at my home, but I expect he will someday. You know, that's you know, I have a real reputation of showing up at people's houses to harass them. You know, and Ruller, you know, he says, please be advised that Mr. Myers is out protesting on the corner of DePeister and Haymaker. And we know you were all here when he was asked if he knew what I was protesting, and he said he didn't even know. Now, what's going on here? So what I want you to do is I want you to go into executive session and talk about me and talk about this. How Heidi could say that and how Ruller could say that.
You have a half a minute, sir.
I don't need my half a minute. I am done. Thank you.
Further?
Peter Pano.
Same, you have 3 minutes. Give your name and address for the record.
My name's Peter Pano. I live at 1258 Windward Lane in Kent. I thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of you. I am here to request that City Council review and study the city's current conflict of interest ordinance, which is Section 1117. On November 20th, I sent all of the City Council members a letter. I sent it to city staff, which kind of outlined my thoughts and some of my reasons for why I think it should be done. I still think that way. And I'm formally asking the city council to go through whatever procedure is necessary to initiate staff or whoever to at least review the conflict of interest ordinance. And there's a few reasons why I think it's necessary. In my opinion, and it seems that the ordinance confuses and combines city-paid employees with volunteer board members and holds them both to the same standards. There are sections of the code, if you read it, it's not a very long code, and it seems to kind of confuse the two and combine them together. If you're a city employee and you're paid, you have certain obligations and certain conflicts of interest that can occur. If you're a volunteer serving on a board, yeah, there can be conflicts of interest, but I think the ordinance goes too far for a couple of reasons that I'll try to get to in my 3 minutes. In section 11117.04, the ordinance calls for the creation of a conflict of interest review board. I seriously doubt that that review board exists. So if it doesn't exist, how can the ordinance be run properly? And I think the ordinance creates unintended consequences that were never fully thought out when the ordinance was passed. And I think the ordinance creates, quite frankly, unneeded safeguards in the realms of conflict of interest. And I guess I would ask, and I didn't realize this, but are all new board and commission members made aware of the limitations that they may face when they're appointed to serve on a board? And some of these limitations are, and I think you understand that back in January of this year, when I put together drawings for a specific project, I received a letter from the city, which I knew at the time it was legal, legitimate, and correct, okay, which forbade me from presenting a project to the Kent City Planning Commission. I said, okay, but part of the consequences were I was told I could resign from the Planning Commission if I wanted, if I wanted to present my case. However, the conflict of interest ordinance says there's a one-year period after you're served where you still can't present anything to a city board or commission. I just yesterday put an application in for a Board of Zoning Appeals variance on a piece of property that I'm looking at. As far as I can tell, I will not be able to represent myself for a project on a piece of land that I may buy. I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm not on the Board of Zoning Appeals. But the ordinance says if you are an officer of the city of Kent, you cannot present to any commission or city council.
You need to.
That's not correct. Thank you.
Mr. Pano, am I correct that you emailed the city and the law director this,
Yes.
and it's under advisement in the law department right now?
I don't know if it is or not.
No, he actually sent it to city council.
I thought your name was on the email too.
It was, but he addressed city
All right,
council.
all right, all right.
Well, I didn't know what the procedure was, but I sent it to everyone.
We'll move it to the law department then.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there further?
Yes. There's a Carly Weiler.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, on this, both these
Yes, you
two,
may.
these two young ladies, I'd like to give them a brief introduction. I was campaigning for reelection, and they came up to me and had a concern, and I told them the thing that they should do is maybe write a letter and maybe get a petition. And so and I told them I would be happy to help them, and unbeknownst to me, they went and did it themselves. And I thought, it's such a great sign that two young ladies are being so active in the community and taking the initiative that I told them they should come down to council and read the letter to council, which they had already submitted to the administration. So if you guys would introduce
Would you
yourselves.
introduce yourself and give us 3 minutes?
I'm Carly Weiler.
Yeah, speak up a little bit.
I'm Carly Weiler. Molly Weiler,
Can you give us your address?
621 Park Avenue, Kent, Ohio, 44240.
Okay, go ahead.
Speak right into the microphone so everybody
real
can hear.
close.
My name is Carly Weiler, and I am a resident of Ward 1. I'm concerned about the condition of the sidewalks on both Earl Ave and Pioneer Street. While walking, scootering, riding bicycles, or jogging, residents and visitors can easily trip and fall. I have enclosed pictures for your reference. I'm curious to understand how these sidewalks can be repaired, and I'm willing to do whatever I can to help. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Respectfully yours, Carly G. Weiler and Molly E. Weiler.
Very good.
Excellent. And for your participation, we've got city pins for each of you. So thank you so much for coming out.
Did you say Earl Avenue and Pioneer
Earl Avenue?
in front of the
I'll
councilman's
take your
house, maybe?
photos.
All right.
Carly,
The young
I'll
lady
take
on the
your
end will take that and it'll
documents.
be
Give this
fine.
one to your sister.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, did they also include the petition they had?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
Further, Amy?
That is it.
All right, thank you. Written communications?
Planning Commission agenda and staff report on December 3rd was received on November 26th, and the agenda and staff report for December 17th was received on December 9th, 2019. Standing Rock Cemetery meeting notes for November 14th were received on November 27th, 2019. Notification that the December Sustainability Commission meeting was canceled was received on November 27th. The next meeting will be held January 6th, 2020. A request for a public hearing from the Planning Commission regarding zoning changes to be held on February 5th, 2020 was received December 6th. A request for the review of City of Kent Conflict of Interest Ordinance was received on December 6th, 2019 from a member of the Planning Commission. A copy of this request was forwarded to Council. Health Board Statistical Report meeting minutes from November 12th and meeting agenda for December 12th, 2019 were received on December 10th, 2019. And after the agenda was published, I received the Civil Service Commission meeting minutes for December 16th, 2019. I received those on December 12th. And I received the Kent Parks and Recreation December board packet on December 13th, 2019.
Okay, thank you. City manager report, Mr. Amrhein.
Yes, I'd like to move items 1 through 10 on the city manager's report, please.
Second by Mr. Kuhar. Is there any discussion on the city manager's report? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Is there further, Mr. Roller?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we're going to standing committee report. Committee of the whole is the first one. I need approval of the committee meetings of December 4th.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And one abstention. Before we get into making our verbal vote for the commission positions, first of all, one thing with the Civil Service Commission, it was never because of a motion made on October the 2nd that was made by council, and it passed that all applicants had to be present for the interviews. That was never, ever put on any of the advertisements that went out, whether it was the Tree City Bulletin, or not Tree City, yeah, Tree City Bulletin, or on the website. So we are going to have to make some changes with that. And we're also going to hold the vote on the park board because it was not accurately advertised in the Tree City Bulletin as well. So we're going to have to re-interview all those with the proper requirements that we're asking. So, with that said, does that do it, Amy?
That does it.
All right, boss. We are going to vote publicly on a motion for the Shade Tree Commission. So is there a motion from the floor to appoint? You have it in front of you. Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that.
Roger makes a motion.
I'll second.
Second by John. You want to say the name, Roger?
Yes, Jim Jenkins.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Do we need the emergency on these all?
It says it in an ordinance.
Yeah.
All right. Now I need a motion from the floor for the Sustainability Commission. Is there a motion from
So
the floor?
moved.
By Heidi?
I'll second.
You want to say the name Heidi?
Yes, Wilder,
Wilder.
Wilder, Ritz,
Or Hertz?
Hertz.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Ritz.
All right, it's been motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, now I need a motion from the floor to authorize the names to be put in the legislation.
Income tax.
Income tax, please.
Did I miss it?
It's the first one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion for the Income Tax Board.
Second.
For
You want to put a name to it?
Yeah, I'd like to move that Peter Dorff be a,
Second.
Second by Mr. DeLeone. Is there any discussion to that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? All right, thank you. Now, I need a motion from the floor to authorize the names to go into the legislation.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrera. Is there any discussion? It's putting all the names into the legislation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign? Is that got it, Hope?
That has-
All right, the first time. Wow.
Good job.
All right, with that said, would the clerk read draft number 2019-129 in title only?
Jerry, am I out of order if I ask just a quick question about the postponing of the Parks and Rec meeting? Are the people who are already here and interviewed, did they have to reappear and re-interview? Or is it just open?
The problem was that it wasn't properly advertised. In fact, it was deleted from the Tree City Bulletin, and I'm not so sure about the website. With that being said, there's somebody that's made a request that they weren't accurately aware that that position was open. So I think we have to re-advertise.
Well, can we re-advertise and just interview
People will apply.
new people rather than making people come to another council meeting and kind of go through the same process again? Or is that,
Mayor, if they make that a motion and that's the way you want to deal with.
Make a motion to it.
I'll second it.
okay, all right. So.
Make the motion. Tell me what your motion is.
Well, my motion is that, what we open up the position, that new applicants would need to appear before council, but that applicants who have already applied and appeared before council to interview do not need to reapply, re-interview, and attend another council meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by John. Discussion, not wait further. Any more discussion?
No, I think that's,
John?
Nope.
Heidi?
Makes sense.
Or Tracy? I know, but she had her hand up too.
They're too mixed up.
Well, these other people might have wanted to apply for the 5-year term. I don't know if they knew that was open. So do they only get to apply the other term?
Well, in that interview, there's only one person that mentioned, and it's in the minutes, 5-year term, the other two didn't.
They might not have known it was, they might not have known what was going on.
Yeah, I think
So
they
if
did.
they wanted to, if they want to apply for the 5-year term, do they have to come back in and interview them?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Or do they just let people know that they're putting their name in for the 5-year term?
Make a motion.
Amend the motion.
So what would the amendment be? So the people that came in before have they have the option to apply for the 5-year term also?
Reappear
They
for,
want to.
I think reappear for another interview, yeah, I guess.
Do they have to?
No, they don't have to.
You shouldn't have to come in for an interview.
they'd just be eligible for
Right.
each term.
But they should say that they want to come in, they want the position.
Let us know.
You're making the motion.
I'm seconding it.
So the people that came in before that were not aware of the full term, they have the option to say that they are applying for the 5-year term also?
Second.
Second by Mike. Further discussion, Tracy?
No?
Mike?
No.
Anybody else? Now, it's the motion amended. Do you need it read back?
No.
All right.
No, we passed her motion, didn't
You didn't do the amendment.
Yeah, I think we have to pass the,
We didn't vote on it.
we? Oh,
It
You
was
have to
first
vote
and
on the
second.
amendment.
You have to vote on the amendment.
vote on the amendment, okay.
Vote on the amendment.
I
All
have,
right.
I have a little discussion on the amendment.
Now's the time, John.
Amount. I could have sworn that during that meeting, that was brought up.
It was.
The PO was the last.
Why do we need an amendment to change anything?
I don't know. According to the minutes, I looked through the minutes, you're right, it was brought up in the minutes, but two of the people didn't mention anything about the 5 years, and one did. And I'm not mentioning any names, which was which.
Mayor,
Oh,
perhaps it's easier if the amendment is withdrawn and council directs the clerk to contact each of the people that were interviewed and let them know that there are 2 positions available. Are you interested in one, both, none?
I can do that.
I'll unsecond mine.
I didn't know I was making an amendment anyway.
Is that satisfied?
Yeah, I can withdraw.
All right, you're going to withdraw the amendment. John? All right, back to regular motion then.
We already passed
You
it.
already passed it,
We already passed it, Rob.
so we're all set.
Okay.
I pay attention sometimes.
Easy this is.
So I will do that. Yep.
All right, I think we're back to
Flashing at it.
2019-129.
Okay. Draft 2019-129, a resolution appointing Peter Dorff to the Income Tax Board of Review and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Any discussion on adopting the ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg? Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Draft 2019-129 passes.
All right, there's a hold on 2019-130. We'll move on to draft number 2019-131.
Draft 2019-131, a resolution appointing Jim Jenkins to the Shade Tree Commission and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Move,
Move to approve.
thank you.
Yeah. I'll
Adoption,
second that.
guys.
Option.
Adoption, that's right.
Adopting it.
All right, is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Draft 2019-131 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read 2019-132 in title only?
Draft 2019-132, a resolution appointing Wilder Ritz to the Sustainability Commission and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Draft 2019-132 is passed.
Okay, thank you. That's the committee of the whole. We'll move on to community development. Mr. Kuhar.
Yeah, I would move the minutes of December 4th and the one action recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Any discussion?
I said that.
Seeing, that's not your job. That's why I make the big bucks and you don't. No discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-133 in title only?
Draft 2019-133, a resolution to amend the Kent Franklin Joint Economic Development District contract, JED, to provide equal treatment in regards to water surcharges and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second by Roger. Any discussion on adopting the ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Draft 2019-133 is passed.
Okay, that's it for Community Development Finance Committee. Mr. DeLeone.
I'd like to move the committee meeting minutes for approval from December 4th, 2019. Is there a lot, does anybody want to?
Could you separate item 2 for me, please?
So, just the minutes of December 4th.
Is there a second here?
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, one abstention. Go ahead.
Any other ones need separated other than item 2? I'm going to move items 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Further, Mike?
Now I'll move item 2.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Any discussion on this? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
And one abstention. All right, with the clerk read draft number 2019-134 in title only.
Draft 2019-134, an ordinance amending Section 913.05 of the Kent Codified Ordinances, increasing the water rates of the City of Kent, Ohio by 3%, beginning with the first billing cycle in January 2020 and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
No.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Draft 2019-134 is passed.
Okay, thank you. With the clerk read draft number 2019-135 in title only.
Draft number 2019-135, an ordinance amending Section 915.72 of the Kent Codified Ordinances, increasing the sewer rates of the City of Kent, Ohio by 3%, beginning with the first billing cycle in January 2020 and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
And Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mr. DeLeone. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Okay, 2019-135 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-136 in title only?
Draft 2019-136, a resolution requesting the county auditor to advance any property taxes that have been collected prior to the normal February settlement date from the proceeds of the 2019 tax year collection pursuant to Section 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike DeLeone. Anybody have discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
2019-136 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-137 in title only?
Draft number 2019-137, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to accept a lease agreement with PARTA to relocate the City of Kent Health Department to the PARTA Central Gateway and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrera. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Amrhein?
Abstain.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Amrhein?
Abstain.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes, yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Draft 2019-137 has passed.
Thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-138 in title?
Draft 2019-138, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2018-142, the current appropriation ordinance passed December 19th, 2018, so as to adjust appropriations, transfers, and advances from the various funds of the City of Kent to individual accounts for the current expenses of the city for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger, please call the roll.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Roger, any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
and Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Okay, 2019-138 is passed.
Thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-139 in title only?
Draft 2019-139, an ordinance appropriating from the various funds of the City of Kent to individual accounts for the current expenses of the city for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein.
Yes.
2019-139 is passed.
Thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-140 in title only?
Draft number 2019-140, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2018-140, the position allocation and general compensation plan so as to update several position titles and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein,
Yes.
and Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein,
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
2019-140 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-141 in title only?
Draft number 2019-141, an ordinance accepting a grant donation in the amount of $2,800 to the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department from the Rotary Club of Kent for the purchase of playground equipment for the playground at 1115 Franklin Avenue, Kent Rec Center, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein,
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Move
No
adoption.
Second.
Is there any discussion on adoption of this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein,
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
and Mr. Ferrara.
President of Rotary. Never mind.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
2019-141 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-142 in title only?
Draft number 2019-142, an ordinance accepting a donation in the amount of $500 to the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department from Forest Lakes Homeowners Association, Inc., for the purchase of a park bench at the Forest Lakes Preserve Playground and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein,
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar? 2019-142 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2019-143 in title only?
Draft 2019-143, an ordinance accepting a donation in the amount of $25 to the City of Kent Fire Department from Mary Kennelly to be used in the creation of a fund for a Safety Forces Memorial and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Shaffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrhein?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeone?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
2019-143 has passed.
Okay, that's it for Finance Committee, Health and Safety. There's no business under there. Land use, nothing. Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Yeah, I'd like to move the committee meeting minutes of December 4th, 2019.
Second?
Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
One abstention by Mr. Ferrer. There's no action, so that's it. We're in our special committee reports, anything? Unfinished business, anything? New business?
Yeah.
Heidi?
Go ahead.
Maybe
Heidi.
Roger and I might think that's the same thing. I would like to make a motion to move to the appropriate committee a review of the conflict of interest policy.
I'll second that.
All right,
And
further discussion?
yes, first of all, the policy was written a long time ago, and I think we should make it a matter of course to review all of our policies at some point. It does warrant, it does seem to warrant a review in light of the arguments that a person cannot represent themselves to any board. And I would say that our board members are citizens, and I think that we should take a look at that policy in light of that fact that they are citizens, as we are as well. So I just think that it would be a good idea to take a look at that, compare it to other conflict of interest policies in other communities, and just to see if we are behind the times or we're with it.
Roger?
Well, I think we're always concerned that we don't have many candidates for our positions. And you know, I'm kind of a stickler about conflict of interest. I worry about that with my own personal life. You know, I never want to be in that position. On the other side of the coin, I think that you really need to take a look at a policy that's been on the books for 20 years now, maybe. I'm not sure how long it's been. So I think it's very appropriate that we see what other communities are doing and see if it aligns with what the expectation of state law. And I'm not an attorney, and we have one sitting there, so maybe they come back and help us a little bit in trying to bridge it or change it.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yeah, I would approve it going into committee, but, and I think there's some adjustments that need made the way we're doing things. But I also believe that, you know, if you're serving on a board, you can be tempted for bias and maybe some other things, but there are things that need corrected, like maybe the 1 year after should be eliminated. But it's just hard to vote on something that you're presenting for yourself. And so we'll talk about it.
Anybody else?
I don't believe that anyone would want sitting on a board to be voting if you're on that board, but I think if I read it correctly when I read it, it means that any one of us sitting here couldn't go in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals if we wanted to build a garage and we needed a variance. At least that's how I read it. It's not clear. I don't know that we leave our personal rights at the door. As long as we're not voting on something that we are going to gain from, I'm not exactly sure why we can't, as even city council elected members, represent ourselves in front of a Board of Zoning Appeals. I understand that it might be intimidating to someone that we've appointed. I mean, I understand all that. But I think we need some clarification so that I really believe that people who apply for these positions don't realize the rights they give up at that doorway. And I just think that we need to take a good hard look at it.
All right. Anybody else? Hope clarification in my mind, the letter that Mr. Pino sent to me that actually wasn't referred to your department, I misquoted that. Is that part of this motion?
Yes.
All right. Is that agreeable to everybody? All right. All in favor? You got something to say?
No.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Any other? Okay, at this time, we're going to swear in the new elected officials. And I say elected officials, that's the ward councilman. So let's, Hope is going to do everybody but Jack. So Jack, could I have your lovely wife up here?
There you go.
And go to the mic. And Amy has the,
Garret, were you winking at the mayor or just winking?
I just need him to babysit his kids so his wife can come to our party.
Oh, here.
Do as she says for once.
Put your hand
He always does.
Listen to her like you do at home.
Please repeat after me. I, Jack Amrhein,
I, Jack Amrhein,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support, uphold, and defend
that I will support, uphold, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter, ordinances, and laws
and the charters, ordinances, and laws
of the City of Kent,
of the City of Kent,
Portage County, Ohio,
Portage County, Ohio,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
honestly, diligently, and impartially
honestly, diligently, and impartially
perform and discharge all of the powers and duties.
reread that.
That was more than 4 words.
4 words.
I think we had this trouble the last time.
And impartially perform and discharge
And impartially perform and discharge
all of the powers
all of the powers
and duties incumbent
and duties incumbent
upon me
upon me
as Ward 2 Council
as Ward 2 Council
in and for the City
in and for the City
of Kent,
of Kent,
Portage County,
Portage County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
according to the best of my ability
according to the best of my ability
and understanding.
and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Kiss the bride.
Don't sign it, Jack. Congratulations. That law director, Ms. Hope, is going to
That's his name.
do the rest of you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Heidi, do you want to do this as a group or individually?
As a group.
All right.
Oh,
Jack. John.
Okay, Robin.
He didn't run.
Yes.
He didn't run.
Yeah, give him a-
I had a tough fight, but I won.
And
The other- another
somehow or
way.
another, Roger was sworn in too, I think.
No, I said I don't want to be sworn at.
Oh, all right.
By the mayor.
We stand according to height or what?
Yeah, you right beside.
Us two tall ones.
Hey, Jim, those little girls delivered that petition to you?
Just follow my instructions, mister. Okay? Okay, raise your right hand.
That's beautiful.
I state your name. I, Heidi Shaffer. Do solemnly swear and affirm. Do solemnly swear and affirm. That I will support, uphold, and defend. That I will support, uphold, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the State of Ohio. The Constitution of the State of Ohio. And the Charter, ordinances, and laws of the City of Kent. The Charter, ordinances, and laws of the City of Kent. Portage County, Ohio, and that I will faithfully, honestly, diligently, and impartially perform and discharge all the powers and duties incumbent upon me as State Your Ward Council in and for the City of Kent, Portage County, Ohio, State. In and for the City of Kent,
I think my hearing aid needs a new battery.
County, State of Ohio, according to the best of my ability and understanding. Congratulations.
Yeah, so help me God.
Signatures.
It's supposed to have been. Heidi, or, it wasn't on there? Amy, you forgot something on that.
This is a death certificate.
I said so help me God.
You said so help me
I
God?
don't have my glasses.
John said it.
Okay, good.
I said it. One of the few things I said.
I remember 4 years ago.
I did much better.
Jack, I'm surprised you didn't go blah, blah, blah.
I did much better this time.
How about the 2 words?
Yeah,
You mean the I do?
Yeah.
when I was in my 40s, I could remember it all, but I can't remember it.
I remember I forgot to say so help me God on ours.
That's funny.
I said it.
But you forgot to,
You had it on yours, it
Wasn't on yours.
I think Amy didn't have it on there.
I said it anyhow.
It's not my day.
Hey, Mayor, maybe I was politically incorrect, but I said it anyhow.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Congratulations.
What's that?
Again, Dave.
Congratulations to all the ward council seats. Any councilman comments? Anybody?
Yeah.
Gwen?
So as the holiday season approaches and we're going to be celebrating, if people are celebrating or not, I'd like to just take a moment to thank the people that are working diligently to make sure that we are all safe and while we're out and about. And that includes our fire department, our police department, our service department, keeping the roads clear. Also healthcare workers, retail workers, and the service industry, and that we could all have a generous heart and wallet at this time, and especially for those in need, that we can remember them and keep them in mind as well. So thank you to those people.
Thank you.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think this has been a very good year for the citizens of Kent and for the administration and everybody that works for the city. And council and the administration have worked diligently and not over expediently to pick out a good city hall that's going to be built. And I think that's good. If we have to wait an extra month and make smarter decisions, I think that's the smart decision. So we thank everybody that participates in the operation of city government, and we thank all the citizens of Kent for being a part of this. And you all have a happy holiday and be careful.
Heidi?
I would like to thank my colleagues and the city staff for another wonderful year serving the city of Kent.
Anybody else? Under mayor's comments, I guess a lot of you said the same thing I would have said. Thank you, especially to the safety forces that'll be working Christmas and New Year's while you're enjoying your family, and they're going to be out there protecting us with the safety. And, if you have an opportunity or something, say thank you to them. This is our last meeting of the year. We're bringing 2019 to an end. And according to our sheet here, we passed 143 ordinances this year. And it seems to me that's a lot less than we have done in the past, if I remember correctly. But, congratulations. I guess we're getting it right, I guess you can say. And Happy New Year and Merry Christmas on my side. But if you celebrate the holidays a different way, you celebrate it the way you were brought up and what you believe in. We'll see you on January 8th, 2020. It'll be our next council our next committee meeting at 7 o'clock, right here, because we don't have a new city hall yet. One more
We're
thing.
working on it, Mayor. We're
One
working.
thing. To our new clerk,
Oh,
here,
Oh, even after this meeting? Even after this?
it's not pink, it's red.
Thank you. Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah. The other day, we were talking about, she said to me, I got you. I knew we're on the same page, so, thank you. This meeting's adjourned.
Hey, by the way, thank Health Department for our little